Live from America's finest city. This is Real Talk San Diego on ESPN 1700.
That's right, baby. You are back live in the Secret Stash. I'm your host, Jesse Ibanez, co-founder of the Greenhouse Group. So if you or someone you might know is looking to get into or out of a home this summer, we move people with purpose. Go check us out at thegreenhousegroupinc.com. And live in the studio today, we're going to talk about taxes. It's kind of like a little Allen Iverson, like practice. We can talk about practice. We can talk about...
We're talking about practice.
You know, tax season's over. Why are we No, tax season is never over, my friends.
That's right.
And that's why we got Heath Haggerty in the house. He is the owner of PB Tax Center. Do people in PB even do taxes, or do they just like going out to the bar?
It's about 50-50. You'd be
It's
surprised.
about 50. Heath already in the house right there. You get a point right out of the gate there, Heath. That's right. Heath, by the way, you can check him out at pbtaxcenter.com. And in the next hour, we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff, taxes that have nothing to do, well, maybe not necessarily directly, but nothing to do with April 15th, okay? They have to do with April 16th to April of this year to April 14th of next year. Everything that you're doing that you're not even thinking about that you need to be doing to make sure that you've got a bona fide, holistic, healthy, give me one more superlative. Prepared tax plan. Nice work. Good. And by the way, so Heath, of course, I have a pleasure of knowing you prior to us hanging out right now, but how would you introduce yourself to the fan base of someone who's never met you before?
Well, my name is Heath Haggerty. I'm a CPA. I own and operate Pacific Beach Tax Center. And I heard you mentioning something about common sense in the last segment.
Yeah.
And many of the IRS rules are non-commonsensical.
Man, ain't that the truth?
So I think in some way I try to just communicate it in a very simplistic way, good language where anybody can understand, and hopefully with the main goal being that you don't pay $1 more in taxes than you should.
Yeah, hallelujah, man. As a thesis, I think that's the gist. Somebody much wiser than me has said that, we moved into what you might refer to as the information economy. Like with Google, with the internet, with the gazillion blog sites and free reports and everything you could possibly imagine, there's no shortage of information out there. And so you can get your hands literally on anything. Now, what's different, though, I guess, and you might say we're moving now into the consciousness revolution, is the human being that takes the time to sit down belly to belly, actually understand your goals, understand what your objectives are, figure out your own unique pecuniary profile, right, your money game, and then take that information and then package it up so that it's something that you can actually use. Psychological flooding on one end and an actual bona fide, legit tax structure on the other. That's kind of what you're talking about, right, Heath?
Yes, all except for I don't necessarily sit belly to belly, but I do sit at the same table with my clients.
Well, that's because you're a strapping, dapper young man, and you wouldn't be able to go belly to belly if you were hugging someone.
You're right. Well, yes, that's true. Yes, you are correct. And the rules at the IRS, people always talk about, let's make the tax code simpler. Let's make this thing easier for people to understand. Well, it isn't happening. In fact, it's actually going the opposite way.
I would agree with that.
Rules are
another point for you, my friend.
Thank you. And it's only going to get worse, more complicated. So the need for a tax preparer, the demand for it is only going to increase, and not only for the demand for someone to just prepare a tax return. It's really a demand for someone who's going to try to really put themselves in your shoes and help you, and like I said, make it simple and guide you through the process, or maybe not. I have a lot of clients that just say, "Hey, here's my papers. Take care of this for me," and that's okay too. But a lot of what I do is I educate people. I teach them the basic tax structure and what to look out for, because you'd be surprised how many things out there are at your fingertips as far as ability to save money on taxes, which is what I always go back to.
And every single dollar counts. I'm going to throw a myth out at you right now. There's a myth, and I'm not going to name any names because I'm not here to slander any legitimate businesses out there that are doing their thing. But there's sort of like a drive-through tax solution for folks.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? And one of the myths is that it's cheaper. I've found anyway. when you ask somebody, they'll probably tell you, not everybody, but let's just say a simple majority will tell you that they know that there are probably more detailed, skilled, comprehensive CPAs out there. But then the fear is, but they're going to cost a fortune. And so they go into the quote-unquote drive-through style of tax prepare, and they don't realize that oftentimes I'm shocked to see that the drive-through costs about the same as like the high-end guys.
That's true. And not only that, you may want to go back 5 or 6 months later to follow up on your drive-through, and they're not there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's to say the least, right? And then you get down into the belly of those details, and it's a completely different experience from bookend to bookshelf.
Absolutely. And there is no necessarily nationwide, there is no standard fee structure when it comes to tax preparation. There's averages, but there's nothing that's set. It really depends on who you go to, and it's hard to really say tax returns cost this much. But you are correct in that you may go to these drive-thrus and pay as much as a high-end CPA and really not get the same level of service.
Now, one of the cool things I love about you and your story, Heath, is that you, like a lot of San Diegans, are a vet.
Yes, I was in the Marine Corps for 5 years.
Hoo-yah.
Hoorah.
Hoorah. Hoorah. Hoo-yah. Ooh-ha, I think is another one. Everyone has got their own little thing, right?
Right.
Yeah. So Semper Fi, right?
Semper Fi.
So what I love is that you took the discipline. And this is one of the things that I admire about you most, is that you've got a very disciplined approach to this game. You kind of mentioned earlier, you broached on the concept of keeping it kind of simple, putting it into language that people can understand with the simple goal of just, knocking off a couple bucks here and there, some strategy, some things they might not have known about, making sure every rock is overturned. But you would hope every person who is anointed with that challenge is doing that. But the other side of it is, I'd say, maybe the magic, right? So how would you define the other side of it? Like the invisible thing that you don't know until you actually get a chance to sit down with someone like yourself in a tax center like PB Tax Center to be able to experience what is everybody not getting right now in their tax, prepare experience.
Well, I think it's communication. It's many people, when they come into my office, they say, "Wow, this isn't like a CPA experience that I would have thought I would have."
Example though, case in point.
Like, for instance, when you come into my office, I don't wear a suit. I say, "Come on in, have a seat. Let's talk about your situation." And I sit there and listen. Yeah. And based on what I'm told, then I offer a couple of suggestions. I'll ask some questions, and that kind of gives me a basis. Before we even start preparing your return, I like to kind of sort of get to know the person's situation and where they are. And
why is that so essential? I mean, it seems like it's an obvious question, but in your discipline, in your domain, why is it essential?
Because I think when you know that, that's when you can really drill down and start saving somebody money. In comparing to the drive-thrus, I don't think they do that. Someone comes in, they just say, "Give me your papers, let's start," and they're typing numbers into a sheet.
And that's my point, is that, let's say, because one part of everybody's brain is like, well, isn't it just kind of like math? Like, here's how old I am, here's how many kids I have, like almost TurboTaxi.
Right.
Where just like you plug it in and it's like boop, 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 and there's your return.
Yeah. Well,
not true, right?
Not true at all, because the more that I can get someone to relax, the more they open up and the more information they give me. And with more information, the more I can do. It's amazing how many times I've met with people, and right at the very end, when I think we're all done, and I think we have our tax return prepared, they say, "Oh, wait, but there was this one LLC I started 2 years ago, and so now we have to sort of start over." But if I can get people to relax, they come to me, I learn their whole story, and it really comes down to, like I always say, saving some money.
Yeah, saving some money. Yeah, and of course, I think it goes a little deeper than just that, because people's game plans as a corollary to where they want to go, and then reverse engineer that back into a tax structure. It's actually a living, breathing organism. So
Absolutely.
Just omitting the fact that you thought you forgot that there was a LLC that you have, that's one part of it. But it's also it's like I said, it's an organism. Like knowing what your goals are, and then reverse engineering those back. Something as simple as what you're depreciating on one of your assets.
Right.
It's not just a mathematical. It could be, and it is for a lot of perspectives. But knowing what's important to that person helps you better advise them as to how to save the money.
Right. Many of the questions I ask, I kind of get puzzled look because sometimes the clients say, well, why would you want to know the square footage of my garage? And I explain that to them because you might be able to write some of that off.
Yeah. Hallelujah. And that's why we got Heath Haggerty in the house, PB Tax Center. You might think, hey, dude, I just did taxes. Okay, I don't want to be talking about tax. No, trust me, you do. And coming up, we're going to talk about a little thing called 1031 exchanges. More importantly, Heath actually has a free giveaway called the 10 Things You Got to Know About 1031. We're going to grab my 3 favorite on this, and we're going to riff right after the break. You're in the secret stash, baby. And we'll be coming right back. Real Talk Radio San Diego. Don't go nowhere.
Hi, it's Courtney with 5-Star Escrow. If you provide 5-star service, your escrow company should too. When you need fast, friendly, and accurate service, think 5-Star Escrow. We're the escrow company of choice for the Friends of Real Talk San Diego, and we're committed to delivering a first-class experience when you need it most, at closing. Why settle for less? 5-Star Escrow, getting your transactions closed and getting you paid on time. Visit us at 5starescrow.com. That's 5starescrow.com.
My man Steve, by the way, right? Steve, laying it down. Come on, Heath. Give Steve some love right now.
Love, Steve.
Who else gets Bowie, dude? Right? Love that guy. What's happening, gang? You are back live in the Secret Stash. We're hanging out on your Tuesday. We got you on your 11 o'clock hour. Real Talk Radio San Diego. Cool local people talking about some cool local stuff. Heath, do you think yourself a pretty cool guy?
I thought that was Billy Idol.
Oh, I'm sorry, Billy. What did I say?
Bowie?
David Bowie. Shame on me. Hold on. Give myself the buzzer. That's terrible.
So, yes, I think
Dude, I
that's
grew
cool.
up in that time. I can't believe I just flip-flopped those guys in my brain. That's called getting old right there. That's called getting old.
I hear you.
Heath.
Yes.
My man from Amsterdam, who's really isn't from Amsterdam. He's actually from PB Tax Center. You can actually catch him, by the way, at pbtaxcenter.com. Or, he's always live at 858-525-1986. That's easy to remember because that was a hell of a year.
Yes.
858-525-1986. Where were you in 1986, buddy?
7th, 8th grade.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think the Mets
Getting into all
won the World
kinds of
Series.
trouble.
Probably.
No,
Probably.
you were a good kid, I could tell. Marine, 5-year, pretty cool character.
Well, maybe there was a reason why I had to go in the
Yeah, it could be true, man. Could be true. So, hey, listen, we are talking taxes right now, not because it's tax season, but because our belief, we'll hold our hand up right now to make the point, is that tax season is really the part you're not thinking of. What moves are you making? What structures do you have in place from April 16th all the way till April 14th of next year? So we kind of riffed on that as a 30,000-foot view on the last segment. I want to get down in the weeds right now. Prime weed candidate. Don't take that literally, by the way.
Got it.
Because there is a lot of medicinal marijuana shops down in PV right now. So
Well,
that
there used
could
to be. Yeah, I think they're all sort of
Yeah, they actually got
disappearing
kind of ran
now.
out of town recently, huh?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
always happens, though. It's like a
Yep.
cycle.
Waiting for the
They'll
next
be back.
round.
They'll be back in a couple months. Our 1031 exchanges. Now, that might sound like alphabet soup, rocket science stuff to the average cat right now who doesn't maybe own an investment property and know that this is a great tax strategy to help you save money should you decide that selling that property and trading it in for something else is your best option, which, oh, by the way, it might be because prices are crazy right now, homeowners. It'd be a good time to maybe talk to somebody like myself to see if selling now is the right time. Cash that asset in. But 1031 exchange is kind of like this open-ended thing that people know. Maybe they've heard about the word, but they have no idea how it works.
Right.
True?
True.
So get us in the door. What is a 1031 exchange?
So basically, a 1031 exchange is a swapping of a business or investment property for another. Any gain that is realized or profit that is realized, you won't pay taxes on. And that's really it in a nutshell.
If
the property that you have exchanged it for is of a like kind nature.
Right. So the idea basically is, if you got an investment property, it's not shielded by the what do they call that again? The first 250 of a single and 500
the exemption.
Yeah, the exemption. Right, the homeowner exemption. Yep. If you own your own principal residence, if you're single, the first 250 you make, federal tax, they're like, hey, you're cool on that. Right. You can, get out of jail free card. If you're married, it goes up to 500. Right. But when it's an investment property, not so lucky.
Right.
You got to realize all that stuff. You got to pay taxes on every cent unless you take those gains
Yes.
and you appropriate them into another piece of real property.
Yes.
And here's where my first point comes in. So you got this cool thing that you gave to me. And by the way, we'll have this up on the site after the show. It's called the 10 Things About 1031 Exchanges You Got to Know. So this is right there atop my list. This is actually number 3 on your list, which is like kind is broad. Right? So if you have a residential piece of property, you don't just have to go swap it for another residential piece of property.
Right.
Correct?
Correct. Real estate is real estate. A apartment complex could be exchanged for a piece of land with nothing on it, as long as it's in the same nature of property. And it must be tangible property, a stock or a bond, those types of things. Intangible property does not qualify for a 1031 exchange. It must be something you can touch. So that's where like-kind, the IRS rules on what like-kind property is very broad.
Now, one of the things that I think is a really cool, let's just call it interesting. I won't go far as to chime it as cool. That's more in the eye of the beholder. But an interesting option are TICs, right? Tenants in common?
Yes.
And that's kind of weird because the way you hold it is kind of almost like a stock. In a way, because it's like a percentage of the interest. But since it's tied to real property, they're still cool with it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So how would you explain a tenants in common situation?
Well, it would qualify for the rules of 1031 exchange. So, if you're able to find another property within 45 days, and if you're able to sell your property and you have the funds that go into an escrow, you have 45 days to identify another property.
Yeah, now, and this is critical too. So now we're getting into another point I wanted to bring. No, you're good, dude. This is about timing, and this is really... Man, I mean, you want to talk about, like, this is the crescendo of how this thing works, right? So you might say it's easy. Okay, I can identify another property. Well, not so fast. You have a specific amount of time that you actually have to get those funds. So let's say your investment property closes escrow, okay? Right. They want you to have identified, meaning you're in contract on the replacement within like 45 days, right?
I mean, the best scenario would be that you found one, you already had one set up, and then you immediately exchange at one time. But you can do a delayed exchange. You can sell your property and identify another property, like-kind property, within 45 days and put that in writing to the Intermediary Escrow company. Once you do that, you're still within compliance of the 1031 exchange.
You brought up a couple really good things too. So allow me, I'm gonna kind of extrapolate what you're saying as you're laying it down. So that's the first part, timing. You got to have something else, replacement in 45 days. Second thing you said was intermediary escrow.
Right. So,
easy for me to say.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, it's not the typical escrow that you closed on your house. It's actually a specialized escrow that holds those funds. So, now, why does it have to be a specialized escrow?
When you sell a property that you intend to exchange for a like-kind property, one of the rules that the IRS sets up is that the seller of the property cannot receive the funds from the sale. It must go to an intermediary escrow in order to qualify for a 1031 exchange.
Who specialize in this type of thing. Because, I mean, truth be told, like typical escrows, they're not really in the business of holding on to those funds that long. Their goal is to get them in and get them back out as fast as possible. So these are actually companies that are set up around San Diego County. And by the way, if you want a resource list of what those companies are, happy to put one in the email for you. You can email me directly at jesse@greenmeansgrow.com, or you can go to Heath's site as well. That's Heath at pbtaxcenter.com. I'm happy to put a list of San Diego qualified 1031 exchange escrows in the email for you. But that's only half of it. Correct. The other half of it is you got to close escrow in a certain amount of time. So they give you a little reprieve here. You know, they don't just say, hey, you got to knock it out in 30 days. Everything has to be perfect. I think they give you how many days?
180 days to close.
180 days to close. Right. So 45 to identify, but then 180 to close.
And there's another important point of this. Within that 45 days, you can identify more than one property. You can identify up to 3 properties.
Interesting. So it's almost kind of like a little loophole.
Well, it gives you options.
Right.
So that is permissible under the IRS rules. You can identify up to 3 properties in the first 45 days. You must close the deal within 80 days.
180.
I'm sorry, 180 days. And if all of that if all that occurs, then you do qualify for the 1031 exchange, and you generally would want to hire a professional company that deals with 1031 exchanges, and you will defer all taxes on the gain of the property, which is significant.
Yeah, and that's, I guess maybe you say the last point about timing is someone might be like, well, what happens if I'm not able to identify something in 45 days, or God forbid I did, and then for some reason we couldn't close in 100 days. And you might also be thinking, how in the world do you not close in 100 days? Well, commercial real estate is part of this game.
Sure.
And I know commercial can sometimes be just as easy as residential, but can also be a bear as well.
Sure.
And it could take months and months to put those deals together, and the discovery process is incredible. So 6 months can also. So what happens if you don't identify in 45 and you don't identify and you don't close in 180?
Well, then you would the funds would fall out of the intermediary escrow company, and you would probably, if you were really serious about it, start the whole process over. Or if you sold the property and you did not fall within the 1031 exchange and you didn't want to start the process over, you may pay taxes on the gain of that property.
That's exactly right. That's like the dun, 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 right? So, and then really your only loss would be the cost of actually setting the whole thing up in the first place, which it is actually, it's relatively nominal.
Relatively. Each, company has their own, rates, but it's not huge.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So any other points on this that you want to make sure we riff on before closing that loop? Like, I know one of the things that is interesting is it doesn't happen a lot, but if there's like a boot.
Yes. If you receive cash in as part of the deal, generally you will pay tax on the amount of cash that you receive. The IRS calls that boot.
Right. So it's different from like the cash you receive from the sale. Right. It's different. So how is that different?
Well, it would be part of the exchange. You may exchange one property for another, and you will receive a property that might be of significantly lesser value, so they'll throw in some cash to kind of make up the difference. Boot is generally taxed by the IRS.
Which, by the way, boot, that's got to be one of the only cool words that an IRS has ever come up with.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
You get that old visual of like a cowboy boot being passed under a table.
I think it comes from the old pirate, the booty.
Oh, it does.
Yes.
Oh, interesting derivation there.
Yeah, that's right.
Look at you. Look at Heath dropping multi-platform knowledge right there on us. That's good. That's my man right there. So listen, like I said, 1031 exchanges. If you own a property right now, if you own an investment property right now, you're going to want to talk to somebody about how much that thing is worth. San Diego is doing very well right now. The kids might call it is off the chains with how much gains have been going on over the last 12 months. Might be a good opportunity to take a look at that and see if you might actually be a good candidate for a 1031 exchange. Replace it with like property in a reasonable amount of time. That's my man, Heath Haggerty, owner of PB Tax Center. You can catch him, by the way, at pbtaxcenter.com or directly at 858-525-1986. Again, that's 858-525-1986 because it was a damn good year. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit more about a couple things that are missing from your tax strategy. I guarantee it. We'll be right back. Real Talk Radio San Diego. You're in the Stash.
Hi, it's Courtney with 5-Star Escrow. If you provide 5-star service, your escrow company should too. When you need fast, friendly, and accurate service, think 5-Star Escrow. We're the escrow company of choice for the Friends of Real Talk San Diego, and we're committed to delivering a first-class experience when you need it most, at closing. Why settle for less? 5-Star Escrow, getting your transactions closed and getting you paid on time. Visit us at 5starescrow.com. That's 5starescrow.com.
I know when to go out, know when to stay in, get things done.
That's good stuff right there. That's my man Steve back there running things on the board. I appreciate you, Steve. There's some Bowie for you, right? All right, good deal.
I think that was from 1986 too.
Ooh. You trying to do a little call to action on your number?
Maybe, yeah.
1986?
Maybe, yeah.
Well, let's just give it away right now since you did that. 858-525-1986. That's not only where you are, but that's where your whole crew back at PB Tax Center is, right?
Yes, our whole crew. They told me they're listening now, so I want to give a little shout out to my friends in PB Tax Center.
Hoot, hoot. That's right. That's my man Heath Haggerty. He's the owner of PB Tax Center. I'm sure all the people back right now in the office are making fun of him as best they can.
Yes, without a doubt.
Yeah. They got a couple voodoo dolls. Are you feeling like spikes in your back
Is that what that was?
Yeah. Good. Hanging out. Listen, Heath Haggerty, before the break, we were talking about 1031 exchanges. That's obviously something, a conversation you can help proctor that's near and dear to my heart. Another thing that is, I think, a fantastic contribution that you guys make, and this is something that's also near and dear to the other part of my heart, is the path of the entrepreneurial spirit, right? The concept, one of the things I love about San Diego is that there's so many entrepreneurs who are, and maybe they're not even, maybe they haven't done their thing yet. Maybe they got their dream, they got their goal, but they're still holding down like a job, right? So they're still like, putting in the 9 to 5, but in their mind at nighttime, in the morning, on their way to work, they're kind of dreaming about the thing that they want to do, right? Making that shift. And that's a terrifying shift.
Yes.
Going from the entitlement industry to the results industry. Right? So what are one of the things that you do that you love about what you do to help folks like that?
Well, I get a lot of questions about people exactly like you're saying. They have a skill, they're thinking about breaking off and working for themselves, or either as a contractor or really starting their own business. And most people don't know where to begin. What do I do? Do I start an LLC? Do I incorporate?
Do I even need one?
Right. And so I like to keep things simple. And what I tell people is the way that you start a business is you say, I'm starting a business, and then bang, there you've got it. You have your own business. The IRS, however, there's a few things you want to do.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Separation is always the thing I tell people. If you want to start
church and state?
Well, I hope, yes, without a doubt. Don't get me started on that.
No, but more specifically, you're talking about
separation
funds, right?
Yes, separation of business and personal, meaning the IRS says it's always a good idea to separate any side business work that you have in a separate bank account from your personal bank account. You may want to operate as a sole proprietor and doing a business as name. You want to start a fictitious business name. You want to get a bank account in that fictitious business name. You want to have your own tax ID number into that fictitious business name, and you want to have separate record keeping in that fictitious business name. So that's usually the first thing I tell new people that want to break out onto their own.
And that sounds self-explanatory, but when you get down into those weeds a little bit, like, why is that so critical? And you can also maybe make a secondary follow-up point, which is, why is it so poorly followed?
Right. Well, the reason that it's so critical is it actually makes your life simpler and allows you to focus on the business itself rather than worrying about your accounting. When you have everything, all your business activity flowing through one separate bank account, it makes your bookkeeping, it makes your record keeping, it makes a lot of things much easier so that you as an entrepreneur can focus on your business rather than worrying about administrative tasks.
And there's a big word that I'm going to throw out here called collusion.
Collusion, yes. Well, I think collusion requires two people, but I think... yes, that is true. You can intermingle funds in a way that would be problematic, and you don't want to do that. So it's always a good idea to separate church and state, or I mean, business and personal.
Yeah, good. So other side of that then is, why do people seem to not follow this so as strictly as they need to? And I think I know the answer, but I'd love to hear it from the expert instead.
Well, what I've seen is maybe their new business, there isn't a whole lot of activity, they're not making a lot of money, they're not doing a whole lot, and they don't see the need for it. Hey, what's the problem with the few business transactions running through my personal bank account? So it's really a procrastination issue.
I'd say absolutely. It's like a laziness, procrastination issue.
Right.
So we've actually got Zachary Whitnack, who's, by the way, streaming Meerkat. You know about Meerkat yet? Dude, Meerkat's so cool. You can actually stream this whole thing live right now. If you go to Meerkat, you download the app. Zachary Whitnack was asking, what's the biggest mistake people make when starting their own business?
Good question. The biggest mistake people make when starting their own business, what I call, is putting the cart before the horse. They start an LLC, they create a corporation, they do all these things because maybe someone told them they needed to do that.
Or the internets.
Right, the internet.
Yeah.
And so, and what I find what happens is whatever business they may be trying to get into, maybe it doesn't take off as much as they thought or they want. It kind of falls by the wayside. Yet they've created this entity with the state of California, and then they forget about it. 3 years go by, and you get a letter from the state of California saying, hey, you didn't file your returns, and now you owe us $3,000. Bad.
Definite point for that, man. Yeah. That's so true.
Right.
Oh, man, that's so true. And then that's not even to mention other little things which are almost like stones in your shoe, like even like the city of San Diego. Like they want you to have your little business license thing. And what's funny about them is that they don't do a very good job telling you that this is due.
No.
So you need coaching. You need to be able to know all these little things that you have to pay.
Yes.
Otherwise, you just get like a bill 4 years later, and they're like, oh, by the way, you haven't paid us, and then you got penalties for 4 years.
Right.
And you're like, I didn't even know you existed.
Exactly. And so one of the things I do for my clients is when they come in, I have this checklist of business startup. Type. And
I love that.
And that helps.
Ooh, and you can get that on your website?
I can put that on my website.
Yeah, let's put, and you know what? If you'll give us a copy of that too, we'll put that over on our show notes under secretstashradio.com, along with the 10 things you got to know about 1031 exchanges.
Sure.
That little checklist. That'd be really cool.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So there you go. You know, you got your business. Hopefully you didn't just go to the internets and download, the thing from some guy who knows nothing about you, and you all of a sudden got a LLC and you didn't even need. Okay, so let's say that wasn't the case. They met you, they came in, they sat down, you were able to assess them. What next?
So what I generally recommend is that you let the business dictate when you're going to incorporate, meaning you have to have some form of business. You're a sole proprietor. Let's say you get the separate bank account, you have a separate EIN, and your business starts, and maybe things start flowing, and you become more profitable than you thought, and all of a sudden, hey man, I've got this side business. I may even quit my job and start doing this full time.
Okay.
I generally recommend when you get to that turning point, that's when you want to start considering incorporating in a formal manner with, an LLC or a corporation.
So I heard you say two things. So just for points of clarity, is it about the money you're making, or is it about the fact that you're going to be autonomous from like your job,
right?
And this is going to be your primary source of income? Which one of those two, or both?
It is more about your profitability.
Okay. So what would be a good measuring stick to know you're profitable?
I would say that when you get somewhere between 30 to 40,000 of profitability in a year, you by incorporating, you're going to save money.
Okay. So it's kind of about the relativity of how much it costs to incorporate and how much it costs to kind of keep the corporation alive and breathing and functioning every year.
Versus what you're going to pay under that amount of profit in self-employment tax. Because there's another step, and it isn't necessarily just incorporating, because in order to do it right, you want to have the S Corp designation, which is another. That is the key. You start a corporation, but you must have it designated as an S Corp.
Right, and that you would also argue is dependent on the kind of business and stuff. Like, because there's the C Corp, there's the S Corp, there's the LLC, and each one of them kind of has their own modus operandi, you might say. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Right. I know for me, the S Corp was the right thing, and that's what we run our greenhouse group under.
Right. Now, it's important to note that an LLC can be designated an S Corp as well.
Interesting.
So when you get to that range, 30, 40,000, that's when I recommend people consider incorporating or creating an LLC, either one, and getting it designated as an S Corp.
Because
you're going to, when you work for yourself as a sole proprietor, you're paying a significant amount of what is called self-employment tax.
And it's a set amount.
It's generally 15% of your profits.
Right.
And your normal marginal tax rate. So if you're in a 25% tax bracket, you're paying 40% tax on your income from being self-employed. Now, with an S Corp, you don't totally bypass it, because that's against the rules.
Of course.
I wouldn't condone that.
No, you would not.
But you can bypass a significant portion of that once you create an S Corp. You're
a scholar and a gentleman, and you play by the rules.
Absolutely.
Hoorah.
Oorah.
Oorah. Am I going to get it? Yeah, okay. Now, it's good stuff. So, I think the last thing, and this is probably the thing that people know the most about it, is that, come on, man, sole proprietors, aren't they not the most, audited group?
Absolutely. Males from the age 30 to 45 that run a sole proprietor, that is the gold mine for the IRS.
Because,
well, I'm not going to say that they're not honest, but what I'm going to say is that their record keeping is subpar.
Yeah, man. And it's not their fault. Let's be honest, man. It is hard.
Right.
That's why you got guys like you, man. I mean, seriously, you know, and that
the IRS, the burden of proof is on the taxpayer.
Yeah.
You can make $1 million, but spend $900,000, and if you can't prove that you spent the $900,000 on your business and you really only made $100,000, if you cannot prove that, you're going to pay tax on the entire $1 million. And so the IRS
you're going to pay
care.
all right.
Yeah. So most of the time, what I see is poor record keeping.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, again, I think is saying the least.
Yep.
So Heath Haggerty, owner, pbtaxcenter.com. You can catch him live, by the way, at 858-525-1986.
Yes.
Again, that's 858-525-1986. So what have we covered so far today? So first of all, got a chance to meet you, the strapping young man. By the way, you got to catch him. If not on Meerkat Stream, you got to catch him on the YouTube broadcast. This is one clean-cut brother now.
I like young.
Yeah, Young works too. And then we got into the belly of 1031 exchanges.
Yep.
And there's so much more about that. Like we just sort of, tip of the iceberg kind of thing. Like there's a whole riff about second homes.
Yes, vacation
which
homes.
is a really popular element. People need to understand about that.
There's also a potential that the IRS might limit the amount of a 1031 exchange, and that's later on.
Interesting. Okay, good. Yeah, so all reasons why. First, you need to download that document, which you can get on our site at secretstashradio.com or on Heath's site at pbtaxcenter.com. And then, hey, starting your own business, entrepreneurial spirit. That's the stuff we love tracking here in the Secret Stash. And if you're in that camp, don't just go running out and throw a bunch of cash down on things that you think you might not know when you don't even know what you don't even know. Instead, get a tax plan.
Know what you don't know.
Know what you don't know. Wouldn't that be awesome if you could know what you don't know?
I try to know what I don't know.
Yeah. That's a lifelong pursuit. And instead, because you don't know what you don't know, you got to get in touch with a guy like Heath. And we already said 858-525-1986, so we'll say it again. So coming up, man, we're going to round out this conversation with what I think is the bookend of this, which is, I don't have the stat, but I know a lot of folks, if you're listening right now, you're like me. You started out with not thinking you needed a CPA. So we're going to talk about some pitfalls and some potholes, I think is what I was going for there, about the old online game and what you need to know before next year's taxes. That's a Secret Stash, baby. And it's Real Talk Radio. We'll be right back.
Hi, it's Courtney with 5-Star Escrow. If you provide 5-star service, your escrow company should too. When you need fast, friendly, and accurate service, think 5-Star Escrow. We're the escrow company of choice for the Friends of Real Talk San Diego, and we're committed to delivering a first-class experience when you need it most, at closing. Why settle for less? 5-Star Escrow, getting your transactions closed and getting you paid on time. Visit us at 5starescrow.com. That's 5starescrow.com.
What's happening, gang? You are back live in the Secret Stash. I'm your host, Jesse Ibanez, co-founder of the Greenhouse Group. If you're looking to get into or out of a home this summer, check us out at thegreenhousegroupinc.com. We move people with purpose, Heath. Did you know that?
I did.
That's our game plan, brother.
That's great.
That's right. And by the way, on that note, we were talking about 1031s, talking about the summer months. Check this out. Little fun fact for you, Heath, before we get back into the tax game. We have, I think, our average sale price right now in San Diego County just jumped back up over 500. I don't know the exact metric. I want to say it's somewhere around like 515 or something. Median, I should say, price point. So prices are back up, man. I mean, that's like basically pre-bust levels, right? We were doing a show a little while back. We were shocked to find that there was still a large percentage of homes. It was almost a quarter. Now, granted, it's about 2 months back. I don't know if this is still as true as it was then. Almost a quarter of the homes were $250,000 or less. Can you believe that? So even though it's up, there's still a big chunk of homes that are $250,000 or less in the county. Check it out. Here's something that's really cool. On Saturday, my firm listed a house over in Spring Valley, 1604 Presioka Street, unit number 27, $175,000, 2-bedroom townhome.
Wow.
Right?
Nice.
I need to give myself get like a little ding or something out of that.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah. 175. How cool is that?
Yeah, that's great.
I'm fired up on that stuff, man. Anytime you get a $175,000 two-story townhome
in San Diego.
Yeah, fired up about that. So, by the way, if you want to learn more about that, you can go to our site over there. Like I said, the greenhousegroupinc.com. Learn more about that or any of the other properties we have for sale. before the break, we were riffing on this concept of the online tax game. I would love to end with this if I can. I got nothing against the online game. I was an online gamer, you might say, right? Online tax gamer.
Sure.
When I started out and I just had, a one little dinky job and it was super basic and I didn't know any properties or anything like that. I did the online game for a little bit, but it was quickly revealed that I had no idea what I was doing. And I remember the first year I went to go sit in with my then tax preparer at the time. He looked at my my tax return from last, and he chuckled because I'd left so much money on the table. Right. Even though I didn't make a lot, relative percentage wise, it was a lot to me.
Yes.
And so let's riff on that a little bit. So let's say that we're meeting somebody right now who's still in the online tax game. We're not going to name any names.
Sure.
But you do tax every year. So how do you know if you left any money on the table?
Well, if you're someone who has been doing your return online, in the online game, you really don't know. And maybe you've been doing it for a few years and you have a couple W-2s and maybe have some, you sell a few stocks. It's highly likely that there's some rules that you're not taking advantage of. And by doing it online, you don't know if you're leaving anything on the table.
Yeah, so point made. So then what do you do? So do you
Well, you come see someone like me and hopefully...
Okay, so say more about that. So what kind of system do you have in place for people like that?
So generally what I'll do is I'll have people, when there's a situation like that, I'll have them come in. I say, bring your tax return, bring all your documentation, anything that says important tax documents enclosed, bring it in. And I sit there and I don't look at their return. I just do their return as if it was...
No way.
Yes, because fairly... efficient, so I can get that done, and then I'll compare it to what they...
Compare and contrast.
Yes.
Wow.
And I'd be surprised the number of times that comes out is leaving money on the table.
Yeah. To put it nicely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's really interesting. So, and this might be something that, like we talked about at the top of the show, dude, taxes, we just got through that. I don't want to talk about, so if maybe you're catching this message and you may, I'm kind of guilty. Maybe I found myself in that bucket. Maybe I played the online game this year or what have you. Go in and sit down with Heath. He won't charge you for that, right?
Nope. I do it all the time. If people come in, I will review your tax return free of charge.
See if you left any money on the table.
Yep.
That's number one.
Yes.
Okay, good. That seems to make the most sense. I know that resonates with my personal story as well when I made that jump from online game into actually sitting down with a professional. So is any other gaps in the online game? What else comes up for you?
I mean, the good news is on that, however, if you did leave money on the table, you can generally amend it. You can get that back. So that's something that I also provide. If I can see that, hey, you left some significant money on the table, I'll amend this for you.
No way.
And get
so there's
that money.
there's a get out of jail button, like a backsies.
Yes.
Little undo.
Yeah, one of the surprise nice things the IRS will do for us.
Is there a time limit on that?
3 years from the date that you filed the return.
You're lying to me. So if you're catching this right now and you're playing the online game, Heath will sit down with you for free, and he'll even go back 3 years.
Right. I will review 3 years of tax returns.
That's insanity, man.
Right.
That's so cool. And by the way, if you do happen to become a client, this is the thing I wanted to share with you. What are you leaving in the stash? So basically, what's that mean, right? So for Stash Nation right now, if you're catching us right now, you heard this, radio show either live or on YouTube on the rebroadcast, you're meeting Heath for the first time. If you mention the radio show, what are you doing for him?
Well, I'll absolutely review your past tax return for potential amendments for free of charge.
Yeah.
And I will also provide a 30% discount on any tax preparation first year. Cha-ching.
That's right, brother. That's my man, Heath Haggerty, owner of PB Tax Center. Not only is he going to review your taxes even up to 3 years ago for free, but if you do decide to become a client and you mention the show, he's going to offer 30% off of your first year of taxes. You're going to want to take advantage of that. You might also want to get your hands on some of those resources we mentioned earlier, the 10 things about 1031 exchanges.
Yes.
We went through that. Yeah. And then what was the other thing you said you were going to throw in there?
It was the sort of startup business checklist.
The startup business checklist. All that stuff can be found either at Heath's site at pbtaxcenter.com, or you can just go to secretstashradio.com and we'll have those in the show notes as well. Heath Haggerty, dude, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
That was fantastic, my man. And again, one last time, you can catch him at 858-525-1986. Thanks for hanging out in the stash, baby. It looks like Bruce is going to take us out, the boss. And we'll ask for you to come back next Tuesday, 10 a.m., cool local people talking about some cool local stuff. That's the Secret Stash. Real Talk Radio San Diego. We'll be right back.